All right, all right. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Deprogram Live with the one and only Monica Richardson in the house. Yay!
Hi, Kristen.
Hi, Monica. It is so good to have you here today for this live stream. I'm just going to make sure that we are live we should be live on my YouTube channel and also on Facebook. Yeah, there it is. And so welcome everybody who's watching or catching the replay. If you want to type in the comments where you're watching from, go ahead and join the conversation. The intention today, the vibes I had in mind and Monica was into as well, was to do like a Q&A with you. So do you have any questions about deprogramming? Do you have any questions for Monica? Have you seen her film, The 13th Step? Do you have any questions for her about that film or about me, questions for me about anything? So this was really meant to be like an interactive conversation with you in case you wanted to ask either of us anything live today.
I had an idea, was because somebody came into the Facebook group and they were saying that they wanted to get off Facebook, but they wanted help with the deprogramming and where could they find it? And so I thought of you, and I thought maybe we could just, if you want to do it, tell them, I know a couple of places, but we could answer that question that some people came in and were asking.
Yeah. So it depends upon what kind of help they want off of Facebook. And I do think that's a great question. Not everybody wants to be on all the social platforms. And so if what they're looking for is like a lot of, I don't know, like Orange Pages is something that comes to mind straight away. That's something that's off Facebook. That's a great deprogramming resource. So let me get that link right here and I'll put it in the comments. Also, if you're watching the replay, please also let us know what your questions are. And you could actually, if you're watching the replay on YouTube, you'll be able to open up the comments and see the comments, including the links that I'm posting right now. So Orange Papers I found it to be great for like factual things. Like there's a copy of Bill's will, Bill Wilson, the founder of AA, his will on there. So you can see that he left 10% of the big book royalties to his mistress, for example, or how some of the original paperwork and stuff. So I look at the Orange Papers as like the receipts, like the receipts or some data that can help validate how some of it might be nefarious or not be actually as presented. And so, yeah, I think the Orange Pages is a great resource for deprogramming. And I'm also going to share a link to some of my resources here too, which are over at, I'm just putting the link here, sobrietybestie.com. And at sobrietybestie.com is a link where you can get in. I have a free deprogramming course. It's an online course that takes you through like deconstructing AA, and then it goes into reconstruction after AA as well, like rebuilding things like identity and joy and purpose and things like that, and structure after leaving AA structure, if that was supportive for you. I know for me, the structure of AA was quite supportive, having a place to go, having a community and all that. So it's about rebuilding like community and things like that. And so inside of the sobrietybestie.com link, there's the online course, but there's also there's hundreds of deprogramming resources. So that includes all video podcasts I've ever done, including the many I've done with Monica Richardson's. They're organized in a logical progression. So it goes through like the mythological origins of AA. So you can see how like the first couple of years were not as typically presented to a lot of us. That was really helpful for me in deprogramming. Comparing AA to the cult criteria and the ICSA cult 15-point checklist. So my conclusion from that was, yes, AA is a cult. Now, I don't think that's a specifically useful finding. It's more like, in what ways did the coercive control affect me then and currently now? Because whether or not AA is a cult, which for me it is less important in my personal day-to-day life than how is the coercive control that I experienced in AA currently affecting me negatively, and how can I get rid of it so that I can be free from it and come back to agency, autonomy, freedom, all of that kind of stuff, critical thinking. So there's a lot in my link that, again, it's all free. And so that's a great resource. There's a lot of great resources, Monica. I know you had a blog back in the day. I don't know if that still exists. You have a podcast that's filled with lots of great stuff.
Yeah. So Leaving AA is still up there as a blog, but because I got hacked when it was really thriving, I had to rebuild it. And then but it's still up there. Even Stop 13 Step in AA is a blog. It's up there. I don't really manage it a lot, but there's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of stories, a lot of resources there. But Podbeam is where when Blog Talk Radio went down, I had to, download, upload. So there are some at Podbean, and it's Safe Recovery. It's not under my name. And there's some. I think that I've uploaded 20 or 30, but some of them are good nuggets. So some of them are the early ones where we tore apart the big book back in 2011. And I thought
Yeah.
those were good. And I interviewed everybody from every other non-12-step program, which was Smart Recovery, Moderation Management, and not all of it's up there. So those old podcasts, if they are on Podbeam, usually they are on Apple and everywhere else you could find a podcast. So I'll check with that. The Freedom Model is also that is up there. There's a lot of free stuff on YouTube, and so Michelle Dunbar, you could, and Mark Sharon are those guys. They put out a lot of shorts too. And the C3 Foundation, I think Claudia Christian, although it's not the same as, like, say, Christian, she really helped people get on the Sinclair method and educate like the whole world, because she's a successful actress and quite famous. And AA didn't work for her. And so she made a film, The One Little Pill, and she created this foundation. And she actually did one-on-one coaching for a long time. And I don't know if she still does it. You said the Orange Papers. And I think that was, I just wanted to say it because, and the other thing was that someone was reaching out also. This is a different person. And I could tell that she felt like she wanted to talk to a human being. So when we first, like when I left, it was only blogging. Facebook didn't exist the way it does today, and all this other way that we can communicate. And thank God for Elsa Thompson, who connected me with some people who already left. One guy was the guy who was on the board of Alcoholics Anonymous. So that was really fabulous. And then there was another woman up north who had left after 13 years. And so I talked to both of them. She connected me on the phone. And we had these long conversations. And because I needed sort of that old school high, like on the phone, I can sense, I don't do this all the time, but I just really follow my instincts. And I said, you want to talk to a human being? I'll talk to you. And so I private messaged her. She called me. And we talked for, I don't know, 15, 30 minutes. And it was really nice. And I told her she can call me again, like next week or the week after once. And, I don't know. Anyway, so I think that what you have done, though, I think it's interesting. I didn't know that you had so many free resources until we did one of these like the last time. And I was like, wow, I would have told the group a little more often. Like if somebody came in to the group and they were seeking that. But anyway, so now we know, and now it's here. And maybe when somebody pops it in, we can pop it in there and say, here are these 5 things or 4 things that people can find, because it's pretty lonely. And especially when you think you're like alone and that there's not that many people, when there's probably tens of thousands. And then there's probably even bigger numbers because of the court ordering that has happened, and it's still happening.
Yeah.
That part is really annoying. I wish we could stop that. I guess we could. We tried. I don't know.
Yeah, those are great recommendations. So I put the links all in the comments. If you're watching on YouTube, there's a way, if you're watching the replay, to view the comments here. But so we have Orange Papers is there, orangepapers.eth.limo, sobrietybestie.com, and then singermonica.podbeam.com for Monica's podcast. And we also have thefreedommodel.org/the-addiction-solution-podcast. But you can also, I literally just Googled the Freedom Model podcast in order to get that link. And then I also Googled Monica Richardson podcast Podbeam to get that link too. So they're all easily findable, and all of my free stuff's at Sobriety Bestie. It's why I'm wearing the shirt today. Sobriety Bestie in the house. What's up, people? Yay. What's up to all my besties out there who are liberating themselves from the control of Bill Wilson and all of his ideas from the 1930s.
Yeah, when they had ads for cigarettes and said, doctors recommend Lucky Strike. That right. was one of the things that we all would make fun of, is like how old the ideology was, is that we found these ads. They're so easy to find too on Google Images of doctors smoking and saying, this is really good for your health. It's like, wow, what crazy.
Yeah. And for women, they were marketed as freedom sticks, weren't they? Isn't that how they marketed cigarettes, to get women into the to expand their reach to raise their finances.
I think so. And Virginia Slims, which was a cigarette that was pushed when I was a teenager, like all the ads and stuff, where they did the throwback and then what women are today. And, even the jingle was really funny. So,
yeah.
But anyway.
Look, I got Scott watching live. What's up, Scott? Scott says, I just discovered this channel. Awesome. Great to have you here, Scott. Do you know about Monica Richardson's Facebook group? Let me actually pull that one up too, because that is a gem that we didn't put into the comments yet.
Hi, Scott.
So I'm going to put this link in here for anybody who wants to join a Facebook group. But the question that we were answering originally was, what's a non-Facebook group way to deprogram? Yeah. But this is a Facebook way to deprogram. So let's look into another comment here from Krister. As an isolated alcoholist, it's not easy to leave the unity of AA. Many quote friends that want me to come to meetings. I have a lot of empathy for that. Yeah. Hope it will cool down. Happy days from Krister in Sweden.
In Sweden, you got captured in the 70s.
Where in Sweden are you? I went to Sweden recently and did like a big road trip across Sweden. That was kind of cool. Well,
wow.
Like 2 years ago.
Oh, yeah.
My ancestors are from a little town in Sweden, and my great-great-great-grandparents met at a matchbook factory. And that matchbook factory where they met is currently a museum. So we did like a family trek to that matchbook factory.
Oh, that is so cool. And a Swedish woman via Alaska saved me from those awful sexual predators when I was turning a year. And they were just, one guy had 5 years. They were like way older, 20, 25 years older than my sister and I. And she had rented the little bungalow behind the house where I was renting the room. And Lilan from Sweden was 10 years older than me. And so I thought she was like, she was a grown-ass woman and had this beautiful blonde, blunt cut, beautiful hair, and she wore her clogs. But anyway, I feel like she really saved me. She really saved me from some really bad, evil guys. And I'm sure there's worse guys, but it was really bad. And I became suicidal and for a moment in time. And she said, these are not your friends. You should stay away from these, quote, now they weren't the young people, but she said the young people in AA, they're not really good. These friends don't do this to each other. Monica, you remember your friends back in New York? Those are your friends. These people are not your friends. And I kind of, she really, really helped me. So I've always had a soft spot in my heart.
Yeah.
But the Swedes, but AA got there really early. I don't know the story of how it got there so in the 70s and got a stronghold there, and other countries really resisted for a long time, like Germany and France. They wanted to use science and have people come in to see the doctor and give them probably naltrexone and stuff like that. But welcome.
Yeah, because naltrexone, Dr. Sinclair was from Finland, right?
Yeah, so up in that world, they were, treating it like not a spiritual malady.
What's up, Nadine? Appreciate you both. Appreciate you too. And then we have Sean says, I was wondering if there are any hard numbers of the efficacy of 12-step programs versus no treatment at all that are recent. I know AA released statistics of 5% of newcomers recovering in the late 80s, but have there been any hard numbers since then? That is a great question.
Honestly, do you have an answer? Do you want to go first?
I actually want to look into this. I haven't yet. I am in the middle of my own big analysis. Right here, all of the things. And so right now, what I'm looking at is I'm deconstructing the Cochrane study. It's not looking good, guys. It's not looking good. And the more that I dig, the more that I'm like, oh my God. And as a part of that, I'm looking at like the original Match 1997 study. That's what I read this morning. That's the one that most of the Cochrane data comes from. So I'm looking into the numbers now because I want to be more clear. That's why I think this is such a great question, because people will say, hey, AA is 5% effective. Sinclair method is 78 to 80% effective. And are we comparing apples to oranges? Like, what do the trials look like? What do the data look like? And so as somebody who has a background in statistics, like I have a master's in statistics and I've worked in big data professionally, I thought, you know what, why don't I take some time and dive in and see with like a statistical like background, what does it actually look like? Because it's really easy with stats to lie, right? There's that quote, there's lies, damn lies, and then there's statistics. And if you are skewed, and some of what I'm seeing in these studies, I feel like if you are skewed in your perspective, if you are biased in your perspective, and quite frankly, who isn't? So very smart, very well-meaning people can be biased and say things that are not quite accurate because we have our cognitive biases. We don't know what we don't know, and we can't see what we can't see, right? And that's just part of being a human. And so something that's in some of these studies that I've been looking at recently is the idea that that AA is safe, effective, and without harm, right? And so it's not ever looked at like what are the negatives of the treatment of AA, right? AA is not really a treatment, but you know what I mean. And it's also not looked at that the disease model is a model, not a fact. And so when everybody is told it's a disease, that to me is a treatment effect. It's not, there's no control where they're not told it's a disease. So there's a lot of underlying things from a deconstructed view without getting too geeky here, that there's a lot to unpack there. So I do want to take the time to dive into this about when I look at a bunch of the studies, do I see the 5%? What do I think about that? I don't have a confident answer to give you now, other than of the books that I've read, including like The Sober Truth, which has a lot of stats in it. 5% is like the going rate, what I've seen from those authors. But I don't feel confident saying that I'm totally sure on that from a statistical point of view, unless I've actually dissected the data myself.
Yeah, I was thinking about you with your status, with your master's, right, in statistics. I was like, wow, you could really be able to do something with that. I think that if you are sending millions, I think in my film was 1 point something millions were court ordered against their wills. So that breaks apart the whole thing. Oh, it's just attraction rather than promotion. No, it's not. It's forced to go in every single AA rehab and sober living. You are forced to go there, or you're forced to go there. That's it. So the majority of people that walk in the old school way is so few. And you have Hollywood pushing it, but aside from that, courts telling you to go. The Department of Family Services, like what happened to Brad Pitt, forced to go. All those people who get into any trouble.
Brad Pitt was forced to go?
Yes, he was. Because once Family Services is called, yeah, that's what they do.
So
it's all about.
Brad Pitt was forced to go to Alcoholics Anonymous.
Because that's when they called on the plane, when they had that fight on the airplane, when they were landing, I think here, then Department of Family Services, Child and Family Services got involved. And they're like a pretty horrific organization.
So was he drunk on the plane? I have no idea. I didn't know there was a fight. I have no idea what happened.
I think he was drinking. I think he liked to drink wine, and he was drinking wine, and they had a fight. And, everything else is allegedly was what I would say. But, yeah. And then it's like, it's blanket. It's like even probation. So, somebody I know got a DUI, and they were 17. And so I said, can I go? I was making my film. And can I go with you to the meeting? He said, sure. And so we went, and we're sitting there, and he was like, no. And I said, you can't send him there. That's a religious organization. You can't. And he probably had never, except a person going, I'm not going there. I hate it. But he said, oh, okay. Well, do you think you have a problem? And he said, no. And he said, well, I was just being stupid and going to a party. But anyway, yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's low. I think it's lower than 5%, Kristen, but you'll find out.
Nadine says, I hate that professionals use AA as the go-to. So harmful. Totally. Yeah. I wish it really was the last house on the block, as is part of the AA culture to claim that it is. In my experience, it's typically the first house on the block and the only house on the block that's ever really in media in Hollywood. That if you are watching a movie or TV shows, there is one house on the block. It's called Alcoholics Anonymous. And we have Nocturnal GTX 4144. Oh, finally caught a live show. Hello. And very big hello to you as well.
Hi.
Let's see. Nadine said, I'm just scrolling up. Ugh, I wish I could remember where I read it, but I read 70% grow out of chaotic use or have spontaneous remission. Yeah, I was reading the other day, so I've been like in a stats geek, like data on alcohol use disorder recently, and I read a remission study recently, and I want to actually do, because as part of my understanding the Cochrane study, which this person says, there's a Braun says there's a Stanford study. That's the Cochrane study. The Stanford. I'm pretty sure you mean that the Stanford medical is the one who had AA is the most effective path to abstinence, which I don't agree with that headline based upon what's the data that are actually in the study. It's a 2020 Cochrane study, so that's probably what is meant by the Stanford study. Because it was a Stanford researcher. So that was Humphreys, which is at Stanford. Kelly was another author, which is at Harvard. And then there was another author that was in Mauricia, I think, which is in Europe. Okay, now I just completely lost my train of thought.
And Mass General was controlled by steppers. So when our friend that wrote The Sober Truth, Lance Stodes,
yeah,
there were many things he said off camera. And there were things that those of us who were doing a deep dive, as I was making the film and researching and trying to reach out to them, there were people that were in AA and they had been there since the 40s. And, maybe right away, but early 40s, because the doctors, I don't know if it was you and I talking about this, the doctors kind of went like this with the drug addicts, with heroin addicts, when alcohol was made legal again, and then our drug czar went after doctors. So that piece, when I watched your thing with Bobby, I think maybe it was Bobby who I had a conversation with. Was it Bobby Cirillo? Is it Bobby Cirillo?
Bobby C.
Bobby C. And I wanted to know how did this happen? Why didn't doctors stay on board? Because there was Towns Hospital. There were hospitals where people went and they did give them belladonna and heavy, sedatives. Wow. So you have a hallucinogen and you have a sedative and you go for 3 days and you wake up. Oh, I saw the light. Yeah. You had belladonna. It was the psilocybin of the day, whatever. Right. So when I read the Scream was the last Scream, that was that Johann Hari's book about the story. Did you read that, Kristen?
Mm-mm.
Oh my God, you're gonna love this book. This is like a page turner for somebody like you. Oh my God. So what happens is there's 250,000 doctors got arrested for writing a script for heroin. And no American did this kind of research. He's from Great Britain and he came over here. And he said that, so 250, I said, wow, oh my God. So in the 30s, like right around when AA is being formed, we're not going to write scripts for heroin anymore. Alcohol gets made legal. And what's happening at Mass General, right? In Massachusetts, is that where Harvard, right? Harvard is there. And,
yeah.
I just went, okay. And then they just were like, AA came in 1935, these two, they're making magic. And then they're all over there. And he did create the first rehab that's in Connecticut that still exists in the early 40s. But anyway, they said, we'll come, we'll help them. And they probably, fine, do it. And they've been in there ever since. So it's deep kimchi, as they would say. Why? I think it's a Korean saying. I don't know if it is, but deep kimchi with those people being there, skewing the studies. And I can't remember his name. There's a guy. Anyway.
And I feel like I wonder, again, I want to say it like, when I've looked into the two American authors on the Cochrane study, the 2020 Stanford study, whatever, which is Stanford and Harvard. When I look into it, I actually really like the authors. I really respect them. I've watched podcasts on them and I was like, what is their vibe? But if you are in the perspective that alcoholism is a thing and it's a disease and that the solution is AA or AA is a viable solution, you've already taken a bunch of steps out of science, in my perspective, that
Yeah.
aren't fair.
Oh,
So
yeah.
I'm not saying that that's what they are exactly, but when I'm looking into the researchers, it's like if you already are buying into some of the ideas as facts, you already are not going to be able to see what somebody like we see, me, you, and everybody watching, right? When we have a
Right.
deprogrammed perspective and we understand that believing you have a spiritual malady can help some people, a meaningful number of a subset of people obtain abstinence. That's a fact. There are people who are indoctrinated into AA, believe they have a spiritual malady, and do the 12 steps to get relationship with a higher power. And because they believe all that, not because it's true, but because they believe that, there's meaningful number of people that are abstinent. That is small. It's a small number.
Right. It's a small number.
But and I'm in that number. I went in and I believed that and I stayed sober, right? And but you can't pull out what else I did and what did I already finish? Like there's other things. So there's a lot to unpack here. So that sure, if you believe AA ideology to be true, you might actually get some benefits. Most people don't. We know that. But you don't actually have to believe all that stuff. You don't actually have to become religious to get sober. In fact, most people don't want to get religious to get sober. And actually, there's better, more effective ways. I want to come back really quickly to what Nadine wrote earlier about this because I pulled up stats for my slide, my presentation, and just I haven't given this presentation yet. I'm going to make it into a podcast, but there's already 150 slides on it. So I've just been like looking into data.
Oh, wow. Wow.
And so I just pulled data from that slide deck because Nadine said, I wish I could remember where I read it, but I read 70% grow out of chaotic use and or spontaneous remission. The thing about data that I want to say is looking at one study is great. Looking at 2 studies is better. Looking at 10 studies is even better. Looking at all the studies that ever existed might be impossible, but is best, right? One study tells you one thing about what one person studied under very certain conditions, and maybe even is more about the researcher's bias, maybe, if they believe it's a disease and that you need God, you know what I mean? Like that kind of stuff. But so what I found when I looked at one study, so again, this isn't like huge weight here. I looked at one study that was only a month old, and this is what I found. I'm putting it in the comments right now. It said about 1 in 4 people, this is spontaneous remission stats. 1 in 4 people in this study got full remission without treatment. So 24% of the people is what it was. They did nothing and they had full remission of AUD by 1 year later. That means they had 0 qualifications except desire to drink. And to be clear, AUD, the diagnosis, there's about 10 or 12 questions, whatever it is. So these 24% of the people may or may not have had a desire because that one doesn't count, but had nothing else, 0 on all the other ones. Now you can still have no AUD, be recovered from it completely if you only have one of those criteria met. So 42% and additional people over the 24. So 42% total had 1 or less criteria met, meaning at the end of 1 year, out of all the people in the study who did nothing, no treatment at all for alcohol use disorder, 42% of them were abstinent at the end of the year. So that's huge. That means they did nothing and they're sober.
Yeah. You know who might know? So Stanton Peele, have you ever talked to him?
No.
Do you know who he is?
Yeah.
Yeah. So he's a much older guy. And I don't know if he was doing a podcast with another younger guy, but yeah, there's 2 women who contacted me, one from Florida State. She was doing a study. I should connect you. I'd have to dig through my old emails, but I could do that for you. So in Florida State, and then she had this personal experience, real bad one with AA, how it affected her life as she was doing the study. And then also one of the big universities on the East Coast in the South, I want to say it's South Carolina, wanted to show my film to all the people that were going to graduate from studying health and public health. And so that's in their library, and then they show it. But so I'll have to do a little digging for you. Maybe I could connect with those women and see what their findings are. But I wanted to say it. I remember the name I wrote. It popped into my head as you were talking. "Chasing the Scream" by Johann Hari, and it is a fabulous deep dive of it is about the drug czars and, the failed war on drugs, but it gives you that back history of what happened, why it happened, and then why doctors stepped away and really did not get involved with treating people with alcohol use disorder, as we call it now, or problematic drinking, and people who are addicted to opioids and all the other things that they are. And A Million Little Pieces. So I want to
Oh
mention
yeah, I read
two
that like
film.
20 years ago.
Oh my God! But the
But wasn't
movie,
it a scam? And then Oprah was like
yeah,
had promoted him, and then it was like, wait, it wasn't true.
yeah, he
Not a
made stuff
scam, but
up.
it wasn't. Yeah, it was all
Yeah,
it was
but
made
they
up.
made a
It was a
movie out of
great
it.
book.
But the movie was fabulous, and he didn't like AA, so it's a movie that they don't promote it. He has to go to rehab. Billy Bob Thornton, and Billy Bob Thornton. I mean, I'm sure if I could sit down with him, he doesn't like it either. He'll just say, "I think this is my opinion." Goliath. Did you see the show Goliath
No.
on Amazon?
And I read the book A Million Little Pieces before I was ever sober, before I even knew about AA, like before I did
Oh
any of that
wow!
stuff.
Yeah.
I read it in like literally 20 years ago in 2006
Wow.
or 2004. I don't know. I lived in LA at the time.
That was so long ago. That was a long time ago. Yeah.
So
So
before I had
anyway,
any context of like AA and all that stuff.
yeah. You would love the movie. And Goliath is another one. I was just saying a few things in Hollywood that they don't promote AA. In fact, they make fun of it. And he goes into a meeting finally. He's got a real serious drinking issue. And what happens over this series, and I think it's very intentional. He drinks less and less and less. And then he's finally drinking tea at a bar in San Francisco, and it's raining outside. And but he goes to a meeting here in LA or Venice or somewhere, and he says, "You guys come here every week. You repeat, like you say the same thing over and over." And he just gives them crap, and he gets up and walks out. That was good. There's a few nuggets out there that are, like that.
Yeah.
Let's see. I have more trust in naltrexone than AA.
Do you want to read this one?
Sure, I have more trust in naltrexone than AA when it comes to sobriety. Keep up your good work, Krista. Thank you.
And Mr. Sanfran 57. What is that, Mr. Sanfran? Good to see you here. I appreciate the two of you and the deep dive you've taken into deprogramming. Gotta go, doctor's appointment. I believe this is someone that I actually know from my first or second year of sobriety.
Oh, wow. Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah. Maybe could we mention a couple of things that really helped? I just sort of, when I was deprogramming myself, a couple of things were when I talked to Stephen Slate. Oh, he would be somebody interesting who wrote the first freedom model. But Stephen Slate, when I met him in the city when I was filming there in 2012, I think it was, and I noticed his language. He had he said things differently. He didn't call it alcoholism, and he could have problematic alcohol use, and I was like, I noticed you use these phrases that are so different and so refreshing. And it's like a light was going on. It really did. It kind of felt like there was a lot of darkness. And when you have that much circular thinking and repetition, like, it can actually drive you mad. Like this is a tangent, a deep one, where I've met people with 10 years, 13 years, 25 years that were completely sober, that worked all the steps, and they felt like they were going insane. And they had to go on drug medicine. They had to get real help. You want to say something in there? Jump in.
Yeah, because this comment made me think of that. Tracy Nolan, thank you for this comment. What would be interesting is the statistics on suicide due to AA. And I always wondered why there's that random old timer in the corner of your home group who's like 35 years sober, who over the weekend blew his brains out. And I think this is so. Yeah. And to be fair, I don't know why. I don't think, even if somebody tells us why they're going to do it, I don't think we really know why people do it. Like, to be fair, but another comment on here, Sean says, what's your opinion on the learned helplessness phenomenon as far as 12-step programs? To me, it's all pointing towards the same thing. Nadine says, Sean, from my experience, learned helplessness was real in AA.
Mm-hmm.
And the way that I think about the learned helplessness in AA, it's the forever broken model, the forever recovery model. You are forever broken and you need forever recovery. You can never get better. And while I think that believing certain things and fear and might actually help you in the beginning, although I'd argue that there's safer, more effective ways that don't require you believing baloney in order to get through the initial sobriety, right, or initial harm reduction. That long term, it's actually could be harmful. And the learned helplessness to me is that even when your brain's recovered, even when you're totally better, even when your life is back on track, you're functioning, all of that, you still believe you're forever broken and need a daily reprieve and all of that, that you can't, that you're only, yeah, that you need us to maintain your spiritual maintain. You have a daily reprieve contingent on your spiritual maintenance, right? Which means you need to be altruistic in AA. That's the free labor, right? You need to work in AA. You can't just do any sort of spiritual, work, and that you need to be doing the steps to get closer to God, or some part of the steps, or a 10th step, or sponsoring, or whatever. So forever. And so to me, that's a learned helplessness, because I do think some of that stuff can help in the beginning for some people. Now, again, I'm not advocating.
I never liked that. I even when I was new, I didn't like that. I thought that was really horrible to say that to us. But I'm sorry, I interrupted you. Yeah. It's like, so I interviewed my brain surgeon for my film. He's in there, Dr. Barkadarian, and he opens up people's brains, and they do brain surgery. Whether you have a meningioma, which is non-cancerous, that's just what I had in 2012, removed, and people with brain cancer, and they study the brain. And so there was this little phase, I think we have moved out of it, where it is a brain disease. Remember that one? Where, this is a brain disease. And I it'd be like a woman with breast cancer, which I survived that. Like, you're comparing, no, guys, wait a second. Like, this is not okay to say this, but the part about the brain, and, he's just a couple of minutes. That's what happens when you make a film. Like, you interview somebody for an hour, and then, they're in there for 2-3 minutes. But as we talked, he said the brain is plastic. That's what they call it. Like, that's the word. And it's flexible. And as it gets older, actually, the front gets harder. That's why people get stubborn. You think it's a personality trait. No, the actual part of the frontal lobe is actually getting harder. And then when you're young, it's really plastic, and it can just generate itself. He said, even if you have a stroke, we have people that get strokes, and the brain will assign to another part, like a thing. So I guess this, to another part of the brain, and say, okay, now we're giving you this job because this part is like
reroute it.
Yeah. And, I thought, wow, like, I didn't know that. But it was.
And Bill and Dr. Silkworth didn't either, because we didn't know about neuroplasticity. I think it was the 1950s that we first knew about neuroplasticity, and AA was written in the 1930s. So to be fair, when they wrote the Bible, the big book, not the Bible, the big book, when they wrote the big book of lies, is it lies? I don't know. Did they believe it? Did they believe it to be true? Is it nefarious? I don't know. But they didn't know that the brain can change. And they didn't know about Dr. Sinclair's work, which didn't exist yet, which indicates that the pickle becomes the cucumber again through psychopharmacology. Is that how you say it?
Yeah.
And so the premise in which the AA ideology lands on isn't relevant in modern science.
And also with psilocybin, somebody came into the group recently. I think they were still a stepper. I don't know. Somebody was talking about stuff. And, I recently did a journey. I did some psilocybin, and it was in the spring, it was a few months ago. And this woman has been doing a lot of work for, I think it's 25 years. But, they said there's even a lot of varietals with psilocybin. Like, there isn't just this one kind. And she does just with women. She does the journeys with women. But that they're proving it, because she really wants to get into the scientific part of that the brain can be healed. Like, look, I know somebody really close in my life who did it, who quit drinking with the use of it. It took 3 journeys. It took real therapists that worked with them, people with PhDs and MFCCs after their name too. And, but myself, part of it was that I felt like part of the beginning of the journey where there were these lights, these like beautiful pink and yellow and blue lights, and they were working on like, it was like my brain was lighting up so that's not what I saw. But when I saw the lights, and I felt this tremendous relief after, after it was all over. But while it was happening, it was actually a very positive experience of, I was watching this, like, wow, what's going on here? And my sister, who had mild strokes before she died, she got a hold of stuff in like chocolate psilocybin down in San Diego. She said, Monica, you can't believe it. I'm taking this stuff and I'm getting the use of my right arm back. It doesn't last, but it'll last for 4 or 5 days. And then it will, because she used to draw, you know. And I was like, you're kidding. And she was like, no, really. And I was like, well, but, you know, so somebody came in and there was poo-pooing that there was anything that, you know, to this stuff, to like, you know, modern medicine or plant-based medicine. And they were really being a jerk to the people, this woman who brought up the comment. And, you know, so we had to, you know, straighten them out by saying, if I just have to get rid of them. But anyway, it was like, a lot of us have had positive experiences, you know. Anyway.
Yeah. And there's great data that's emerging in the field.
Yeah, to the point that, you know, I have the Pacific Brain Institute has been doing studies now for 6 years so that the FDA will make it legal. So that especially like, so if we, the easiest one will be with guys from the military and traumatic brain injury from football playing and banging their head and they become violent.
CTE, is that what it's called?
Yeah. And especially the guys were like, I've seen the documentaries when my film was being shown. Oh, it was so tragic. They would show these bags of pills that were being thrown at them. And the freaking dogs worked better to have a, you know, dog therapy. They would pair them with big dogs who were also abused. Like, it was a beautiful, beautiful documentary about that work. But those pills did not work for those guys. But the psilocybin has. And so it's not anecdotal, but I don't know where you could get that study, Kirsten. Even that's a different thing than the thing that you're looking at right now.
Yeah. Well, the brain can change is like the point, and there's a variety of ways that it can change. It could even change like through somatic work, right? Because the 80% of the why am I forgetting the name of it now? What is that nerve called?
Oh, the main nerve here?
This nerve? I can't believe it's escaping my mind completely.
Yeah.
Well, 80% of the nerve fires they go up from the body to the brain. So by relaxing the body, by breathing, by doing embodied practices, we change our brain. Yin yoga is a great way. So it's not even just like all cognitive stuff. So there's lots of different ways to change the brain. Other than believing that you have a forever disease, pickle. But other than believing you're a powerless pickle. So Nadine says, when I first heard I had a chronic brain disease, which I'm assuming here you mean the real alcoholic in Alcoholics Anonymous ideology, I gave up on myself. And then Nadine says, yes, my dad died from cancer. I'm sorry to hear it. Pisses me off when people compare addiction to cancer. Cancer, like a disease.
So sorry,
Sean says, neuroplasticity, our brains can rewire itself in ways we don't fully understand. Totally agree.
That's true.
Nadine, I've done great healing utilizing psilocybin. Awesome. Great to hear.
Yeah, great.
Braun Gray Man says, the potential of me becoming a cucumber again makes me hopeful. I think I will stay a pickle forever. Thinking I will stay a pickle forever is a depressing idea. Yeah, you know, there's a book called, and I don't like the title of the book, right? Because I don't like the word alcoholism. I just think it's too misleading. I like alcohol use disorder. This is my personal preference to go with what's in the DSM-5. That makes the most sense to me. But there's a book called The Alcoholism is a Cure, something like that.
Oh, yeah, I have that.
And so I feel like that book is when I really understood the pickle, the pickle can become the cucumber again. So let me I'm multitasking here because why not? So I'm going to post that. I did a book review on that book right here if anybody's interested. I really like that book. And if you're more interested in how what AA calls the pickle can become the cucumber again, which means the so-called alcoholic brain can become the normal brain. I think that's a great book with lots of science and studies in it and stuff. Nadine says, psilocybin helped me realize everything I needed was within me. Love it. Oh, yeah, here we are, Kate. Exactly, the Vagus nerve. Vegas, baby. How did I forget? That's right.
She knew it right away.
Yeah, it's 80% of the nerve fibers on the vagus nerve, which can calm your parasympathetic nervous system down, right? Which is the opposite of the fight-flight response. They're what's it called? Afferent. They go from the body up to the brain. So by changing our body, we can change our brain, meaning dropping our shoulders, relaxing our body,
Mhm.
relaxing our jaw, doing
Mhm.
different breath
Mhm.
work and stuff. I was with somebody yesterday who was in an overwhelmed state and they were hyperventilating.
Oh,
And
wow.
I just started, like a younger person, and
Yeah.
who I adore, and I just started breathing with them. I didn't say anything, and I just was just like, I just modeled deep breaths, and I rubbed her on her back, and then I hugged her for like a minute because I also know that hugging for over a certain period of time, I don't remember if it's like 20 seconds or 30 seconds, it can also help activate the vagus nerve and calm everything down.
Mhm.
And that all of that, especially as a practice, can change the brain. So there are so many ways, whether we're talking about psychedelics, whether we're talking about yoga, whatever it is, the brain changes. But
Yeah.
specifically when it comes to the alcohol addiction, the way that I understand that the brain changes in a lot of ways, the fact that we don't even drink, the brain's going to recover on its own. We don't
Yeah.
Recovery is a natural thing. Like if you get cut
Yeah.
and you're bleeding, you don't have to turn it over, inventory in it, pray about it. Your arm's going to heal itself. We are natural healers. The brain's
Yeah.
naturally going to heal itself. And also other things can help us heal more.
Well, even cigarettes, like the way how addictive they are. And no one, I mean, they did try to make Smokers Anonymous. Trust me, like I know people that went. It was tiny. Like there were 2 or 3 people there back in the 70s. My sister went and she smoked until she couldn't smoke anymore, probably 50 years. But anyway, you know, that's one that Stanton Bill talked about all the time, is that with the smoking, people just say, okay, I'm going to quit. And they did come up with the patch, and there is the patch, and I think there's some gum or whatever. But when people really, I mean, I quit. Like I smoked as a teen, but it was kind of light. But I was like, okay, I'm quitting on this date. And then I did. And then I smoked a little bit again when I was in AA, because I was like, okay, I'm just going to join you guys. I'm going to smoke cigarettes and drink coffee with you. And they were like, oh, you can't do that, Monica. You don't do that. And I was like, well, you all can sit around and smoke cigarettes and drink your coffee. And what, I'm supposed to be like drinking herbal tea? I'm like, sick of you guys. But anyway, it's kind of funny.
Totally.
It was funny.
Do you want to read
Smokers
this
Anonymous.
comment by the Muppet named Mo?
Smokers Anonymous, I thought AA was ran by cigarette companies. I don't know. Yeah. I don't think so. But
I could never wrap my head around how I was able to quit things in my life without a program, but I needed a program to quit alcohol. But other addictive things like cigarettes, I didn't need a program. And I can never, that was one of my cognitive dissonances. I was like, wait, if AA is true, then that can't happen. But that happened. So then, wait, is it all addiction is the same? Or is the brain specifically different with alcohol? Like, I could never really true up how I also saw people who I would have called alcoholic maybe in my mind before all of
mhm.
this. And then given sufficient reason, they reduce their drinking on their own and they still drink, but not the way they used to. I could never like make sense of that. And I kind of just put it all to the side and just did
Yeah.
AA as if that stuff didn't exist. But you can't really ignore all these myth busters that, that you notice.
How did you find AA? I mean, I met the guy on the beach, but I don't know that part of your story.
Uh, Global indoctrination.
Yeah,
Well,
sorry. It's
well,
terrible. No.
well, I know that like for example, and when I was in high school, I really liked a show called 90210, and
Mhm.
90210 was this where Brandon and Dylan were like, Dylan was like the cool guy on the show, and he went to AA, and Brandon crashed a car drunk, and then Dylan character brings Brandon to a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous, and that's on the show. And I'm a teenager watching this. So hello, these cool kids on one of my favorite shows are going to Alcoholics Anonymous for a
Right.
drinking problem. So
Right.
how did I end up in AA?
Yeah.
Cultural indoctrination is how I ended up in AA.
Yeah.
But I still was like, AA is a cult religion and I don't want to go. I don't want to go to a religious cult. So when I was signing up for rehab, I told my friend who was helping me like call places, I'll go anywhere that doesn't have AA. I'm not doing AA. Like, and so
Mm.
It was
Wow.
it was a lot more expensive to find a non-AA rehab, and I did, and it meant flying to LA to go. And so I went to one in Malibu that was non-12 step.
Right.
But in hindsight, what I can see now is that it was staffed by AA members, and there was an AA speaker came once a week to tell a story and answer questions. And then we had an
Yeah.
optional meeting that we could be driven to as well while we were in there. So even my non-12 step, there was still like pee in the pool. It wasn't clean. Do you know what I mean? There was still like the people who worked there believed that there was a fatal progressive disease, a spiritual malady, a physical allergy, and that God through Bill's religion was the solution to an alcohol problem. So you can't separate it. The treatment, it's not clean.
Yeah. Yeah. There's passages in Ventura, which is really in Oxnard. And then there was, I don't know if the other passages that, we used to see those ads for that was like 50,000 a month or something. But I
Yeah.
did through a pilot, I found there was pilots were being forced, to go to AA. I think they still are, but they're really organized now and they've really fought it, and she fought it. But she found a place right outside of, there was Dallas or Houston. I couldn't believe it. It was so nice to hear this clinic. You could either go to outpatient. It was mental health. There were young people there. Sounded like a really good place. We need more things like that. It would be nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When we went around in a circle in rehab, like at group, we had group therapy every day. And they would have everybody do it the AA way, right? Which is, I'm Monica, I'm an alcoholic. I'm Dr. Bob, I'm an alcoholic. I'm Bill, whatever. And when we got to me, I said, I'm Kirsten, I'm here for anxiety. Every time, every day in rehab, I'm Kirsten, I'm here for anxiety. And everybody kind of eye rolled. Well, the staff eye rolled me, because they were, now I know they were AA members.
Yeah.
So they gave me the eye roll, but they let me do it. And then I went to one optional AA meeting when I was in rehab. And the reason why I went is because I was really scared of leaving AA. Monica, I didn't know how you get on an airplane without drinking. Like, how do you fly without getting drunk? How am I going to fly home from rehab without drinking?
Wow.
I was like, I don't even know how to do that. I have like anxiety. Like, I need to have a drink. Like, how am I going to, I don't know how I'm going to do this. And the guy on the plane next to me on the flight home, and the flight home was LA to San Francisco at that time. It's not far. It's an hour flight. He's slugging them back like whiskeys. And I was like, fuck you. But so I was scared. And so part of the reason why I went to the optional AA meeting 2 days before I left rehab was because I was scared that I was going to drink on the plane home. And I was like, what am I going to do? But the main reason is because there was this guy in my rehab who I thought was really cool. To be clear, everybody else at the rehab thought AA was terrible, disgusting, hated it. They were anti-AA, not even AA needs help. It was, and they were at a non-12 step rehab because they had tried AA and it had failed them. And so they were like, enough of AA, I want something different. But then because my rehab was kind of fancy pants, the non-12 step rehab, right?
Right.
They used it as a filming site for this intervention show. There was all these intervention shows in 2009 when I got sober. There was like a lot of them. And so they quite frequently filmed the intervention show at my treatment center. In fact, I saw some guy kicking heroin in my bed, like shitting everywhere. I was like, oh my God, I'm sleeping in my bed. I was like, this is not okay.
Oh my God.
It's like literally my bed. Thanks. I'm so glad I'm watching a TV show. And then I'm going to go to sleep in that fucking bed.
Wow.
But anyway, I'm sure they cleaned it. But anyway, so they had this guy who was on the show intervention, and they filmed him coming into the rehab, and they kicked us out of the rehab for the day. We went down to the beach or wherever they took us, the gym or whatever. And so so when we got back to the treatment center, I was like, wait, I know you, bro. Like, you're that rapper. I know your music. I saw you on the VMAs. Like, he was famous and he had this hit song, and I thought he was cool. He was cool. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so he went to that optional AA meeting my last week in rehab. And I thought, well, he's really cool. If he's cool, I'll go with him. So I get in the little druggy buggy. Nobody else would go. And me and him
druggy buggy.
Yeah.
That's right. That's what people call
we go down to a sober living house in Malibu on the ocean. And we go in, and there's like 200 people in the living room of this sober living house. It was packed. And him and I sit up front on a couch. We were there early because the ride, whatever. And so they said, it's anybody's first meeting. I raised my hand and said it was my first meeting. And they like They're like, great, what's your name? I was like, I'm Kirsten. And when I walked in that night, I was like, I'm not going to say it. I'm not going to say it. They're not going to make me say alcoholic. I've been saying Kirsten anxiety this whole time.
Right.
So I walk in and they're like, what's your name? And I said, hi, I'm Kirsten. And then everybody stares at me and is really fucking quiet. I am at this point 21 days off alcohol, 28 days off alcohol because it was the end of my 30-day rehab. I am about 1 week off of benzos. So I am already like physically shaking, so much anxiety. I was not in a good way, right? I'm so fragile, just like emotion wise. My nervous system is frazzled. And so they're all staring at me, 200 pairs of eyes staring at me. And it felt like an eternity. Hip hop is next to me, is elbowing me and saying, alcoholic, alcoholic. And I was like, you're not cool anymore. Go fuck yourself. Like, no. And I really, in that moment, I felt like I was choosing between having a full blown panic attack in front of 200 strangers or saying the words I would never say, which is, I'm an alcoholic. And so that was it was such, and I know my story of my first AA meeting is very intense on the coercive control in a way that most people's isn't, but that was my introduction to AA.
Right.
We're not going to continue the meeting until we pressure you into saying words that until you betray yourself.
Wow.
We won't continue.
I've been in meetings where they've done that to people who didn't want to say anything after their name.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really terrible. There's that other guy. He's a famous actor, Ben Affleck. Ben Affleck too was in and out of rehabs, and I met somebody who was in rehabs with him. She said he hated it, and then he'd be his what. And I was like, these people have access. Maybe now people are finally doing plant-based medicine more, using naltrexone more than they did before. So I'm sure that they are. I know they are because I'm here in LA, and it's like a ton of people have tried it, but. Wow.
Jim has a good point here.
Yeah. You're the most important person in the room, Chris, until you start questioning the program. Yeah.
The newcomers were so important unless we say, what the fuckery is going on here? What is all the bullshit?
I remember saying, and this is early on at the meeting in Kailua, and I looked up at the steps and I said, I could do that second half and this, but first half, I can't say I'm powerless because I quit on my own like 2 weeks ago. And so I don't have any problem. They said, well, you'll see. You have to do the whole thing and then you can't get it. I said, get what? I'm sober and I'm happy. But they wanted to just crush me. Not all of them, not all the people. But they're the ones who are like dogmatic and like that's their lives. And I just drink their coffee and start mean cigarettes, smoke their coffee. Did I just say smoke their coffee? I might have said that. Smoke cigarettes and drink their coffee and have that horrific breath they had when they would get really close in your face from those two ingredients coming out of their body. I was just like, ugh. But anyway, yeah.
Well, I'm curious for everybody who is watching live or including watching the replay, what questions do you have for Monica Richardson while she is live on the channel or afterwards that you can drop in the comments to ask her? Also, do you like these live ones? Do you like watching them live and joining in with us? Do you like live when you watch the replay? Let me know your thoughts. Or even if you just give the video like a thumbs up or a heart, then I know that you like it. So I know what you want more of and what's helpful. I think this format is a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun just to kind of see what happens and what organically comes through the comments to see what you guys who are listening or you specifically who's listening or watching actually cares about and wants to hear. So it's a good way to know, like, if the live ones get lots of thumbs up on them, then I know, okay, they want more lives. So yeah, let's see some of these comments over here. I like this one here. AJ says, but did you need a program to quit alcohol or did you happen into a meeting and then hear what they say and buy in it because it's human nature to want to feel like we belong, especially when we're so uncomfortable? This one I really resonate with. I went to rehab and Alcoholics Anonymous when I was at wit's end, right? When I was done. I was done. I had wanted to quit earlier in my life and I wasn't serious about it. Now, I'm not saying that those who want to quit and then drink again weren't serious. What I'm saying is all I know about like what was true inside of me and where I was at in my own life, right? So this isn't like to be inferred to other people, and definitely there's no shame here for anybody's journey and what it looked like. But for me, when I was ready to actually quit is when I showed up at rehab, and when I showed up at AA, and when I let 200 people coerce me into saying words I never wanted to say, because I could have walked out of the fucking room, right? Because I guess that was the option 3. It wasn't really panic attack or say this. I could walk right outside. It's not like the druggy buggy staff would like force me to stay inside, right? I could go sit in the druggy buggy or the van, whatever. So when I was done, I was done. And so I walked into AA. When people say AA got you sober, I'm like, bro, I showed up at AA sober. I showed up at AA 28 days sober, my first meeting. I was already sober when I went to AA. What got me sober was that moment that I had with myself where I said, I can't do this anymore. And I felt like, oh, it gives me the chills and makes me almost want to cry, where I felt like if I don't get sober, I'm going to die. So for me, that moment is what got me sober. That moment where I was like, if I don't stop this, I'm not going to make it. And so I was choosing life in that moment. I wasn't choosing AA, rehab, or sobriety. I was choosing to do what I could do so I could survive and I could live. And that's what it looked like for me. And that was the point when I changed my life. And a lot of times human behavior really comes down to that moment where enough is enough. We have to get to, we don't have to, but often that's how it works, right? If you look at, I don't know, like the data, some people can just say, oh, I'm just going to change my life today and just do it. But quite often pain's the motivator for a lot of us. So, I feel like for sure AA helped me. AA is not what got me sober. What got me sober was the moment where I had had enough of living the way that I was living, and I was ready to do whatever it takes in order to have a new life. That's what got me sober, was that moment where I decided deep in me to change. But what I do know, and what I'm finding in the literature that I've been reading through some of the scientific articles recently, is that social network is huge for any major behavior change, especially something like alcohol addiction. Now, social behavior, especially when I'm looking into the Cochrane study and where a lot of those alleged results come from, claimed results, they do look at social network, but social network isn't just Alcoholics Anonymous. It's taking a college class. It's having coffee with a friend who doesn't drink, or a sober, doing things in community that aren't based around drinking, that are based around either not drinking or just things that inherently aren't including drinking, like typically like enrolling in a college class and stuff. So I do think social network, I think personally, but also the literature shows it, is very helpful. And I think that's one of the benefits of AA. No, I think that there's ways to do it that aren't harmful, because I do think AA ideology is harmful. Monica, what do you think?
Yeah, I think AA is really restrictive, like the way they sit in those chairs, like really close together, and the way they force people to communicate. There's not crosstalk and stuff. And I do think like taking, whether it's a dance class or swimming in the pool, the way that I do, where you talk and swim, and so many, like you said, a college class, but people have realized how community is so important. I think after COVID, in places where it was shut down so badly as here, how much community we need it. And not just with that, when you're quitting, we're really seeing this resurgence of people wanting to create community in Los Angeles. And I think it's great. But I stopped on my own, and I did because I had a really bad drunk after being kind of drinking. I was so young, I was a teenager, but I just said, that's it. I'm done. I got on my knees and I prayed to God, and I just poof, that was it. I was done. And, and then there I met this guy on the beach. I met Tom on the beach, and he tells me this story, and it's like, oh, come. And I was like, nah, I'll see you later. And I saw him again the next day. There he was on the beach. But that story, I've told many times. So then I go and I was like, okay, this is interesting. But like I said to you, every time I look at that story and I go, I did not join anything. I did not want to join anything. It sucks you in. It sucks you in. And all this, like, why are you even here? Why are you even going after that happened and that happened? These people are losers. And not all of them, but this energy, and you have such famous, successful people join and brag about it, from journalists to famous actors to people in government. And look, I don't know, how it gets undone, and I really thought it would. And but I'm hopeful, because I just am. I think that there's too much happening in positivity about plant-based medicine, about the Sinclair method, about bigger, louder voices than me like you, like Tara, burn the stigma, like Bobby C, like a couple of other guys you found,
Quackaholics and
quackaholics,
quacky.
Quackaholics Anonymous, right? People like, yeah, there's another younger guy I found, and you found like another guy just started the
Yeah,
channel.
from recovery to discovery, John.
Yeah,
That's his
and then
YouTube
there's
channel.
John. Yeah, oh, it's John Stewart. He's, but it's not the guy who's the comedian. Jon out of the UK, and he was that guy with 13 years, who like clean and sober, and doing everything you're supposed to do, and thought he was gonna like wow, and he needed help. He needed real help. So I think that, there's a lot of great questions, and the of what helped me really quickly is changing my language, really being thoughtful when I talk about myself, retelling my story, my drunkalogue, taking that drunkalogue, and Kevin and I telling it to each other and going, okay, well, what is that? Yeah, I was like self-medicating, I was assaulted, I had my parents got divorced, I was dealing with all that, and then reading the books. So I did feel there was something about, putting in like new information,
Yeah.
because this stupid book was read over and over for 36 years. Well, maybe there's a group of years where I didn't read it a lot at all, but to read all, I mean, I have a whole book, all these books over there. I read them all, just ate it up. And I can't, and then I went to meetings and went to a SMART meeting, and I was like, oh, wow. I went to a moderation management meeting. It was small, but I was like, oh, this is so different. And so that was experiential, right? So that's not heady. You're experiencing that with other people, watching a guy who's got a really heavy drinking problem, using the tools from moderation management and saying, I can have a beer and not go off the deep end. Not even a zero beer, but he cannot touch hard white, the clear stuff, vodka
Yeah.
or gin, makes him crazy. But he was a musician and played in bars, and he wanted to, and he did. Like, it was so cool to be in a room of sanity and people talking like that, instead of we're all the same. One is all the, it's either one or this is the same. One stick of pot is the same as, a
You're
heroin.
in denial if you don't agree with me.
Is an open, like a opioid pill is the same as a drink, a lemon drop or a glass of wine. I'm
Wait,
like,
Monica, if you don't agree with what I'm saying, that's a symptom of your disease. That's a symptom that means that what I'm saying is correct. Okay. It's such a backing you into a wall. It's like, if you don't agree with me, that's a reason why, of course, you need to agree with me. Like,
that's
wait,
right.
what's your disease?
Yeah.
Let's look at some of these comments. Nadine says, crazy how I knew within my first few meetings, I knew AA was a religious cult, but I went against my instincts. I was so vulnerable and broken at the time. That's 100% my story.
Mm-hmm.
Becky says, hey, Kirsten, it's Becky, your autism and ADHD friend. What's up, Becky? Hope you are both doing good. I've sent my friend some of your videos. Awesome. You guys have changed my life. Really glad to hear it.
Oh,
And
that's so
getting
nice
the
to hear.
accurate understanding of ourself, whether it's our personality, our brain, our mental health, whatever, is so important for our well-being. Kate says, lives are my favorite. Great to hear, Kate.
Hey.
And then we have a Muppet named Mo says, is Monica considering a follow-up documentary to the 13th Step or any related to the treatment industry?
Yeah, so I started one in the fall of 2019. I live in Los Angeles. I flew to Florida. I interviewed the two reporters down in Orange County who were working for the Orange County Register. I think they still are. And they were exposing everything going on here, which was pretty bad. So it was called Rehab Riot. And that stuff, just once COVID came and the lockdown was so intense, and then my husband had back surgery and then another one because I was failed. It felt like one thing after another. And the person this was kind of funny. I think this kind of made me give up hope. But we got somebody at Showtime to start to edit it on her side time. And she said, girl, forget it. It's filled with steppers, Showtime and HBO. So you will have to go somewhere else. And someone else that I know really well from the East Coast said, forget about HBO. They're filled with steppers. So, that stuff happened and life happened. And I really just gave up and it sat on a hard drive. And then was last year, I decided I was going to try to bring my own YouTube channel. And I did just take some interviews and I put them up there. So they're up there. But I do think, I don't know. I would not do it alone the way that I did it last time. I would not fund it myself. it would have to be with like maybe another producer, a real producer, and someone who had money. So whether that it would be a platform, whether it be Amazon or Apple, because I still believe that HBO and Showtime is filled with those people. But and anyway, so that if it could get done even independently, I would do it. I would take all my footage, and now oh boy, it would be a much better film than what I started with. So, and right now it's just keeping it kind of the way it is right now.
Motivate to Great says, this was way more productive and therapeutic than any AA meetings I've ever been to. Awesome.
I'm glad.
Nadine says, I personally believe people get themselves sober. Just some happen to be in AA at the time. Totally agree. And Blue Butterfly has a question for Monica. Any chance of a class action lawsuit against AA?
I don't know if anybody's doing it since the ones, and what would the class action be about?
Yeah, and Blue Butterfly was in your film 13th Step.
Oh yeah. Is that who just asked me that?
Yeah.
Oh, I should call her. Yeah. So no, I haven't heard anything, but I don't have any. I've not been hard pressed to that. I've been dealing with trying to save a street in Culver City, like literally.
And Trixie says, aloha, Monica and Kirsten, and all from Kauai. Oh, Kauai.
Oh,
love your collective wisdom sharing always. It's so important. Mahalo, Tracy.
Oh, I'm thinking about going to Kauai maybe in the fall. Hello, Tracy.
Cool. Emma from Finland, I think, has a great podcast. Yeah, Emma's podcast is called Group Thinking. It's great. Let's see.
There's a girl from Australia too.
And then we have Red Rabbit joined. Hey guys, just hopped on. Great to be here again. Great to have you here. We got
Red
Houston.
Rabbit. What a cute name. Sorry, totally. Red Rabbit. That's a cute name.
Houston Sorry. In the house. Paul, hello, Houston, Texas.
Hello, Houston.
And Nadine, I love this. This is the one that I was thinking of with that last comment. It says, the document of the business of recovery is good. It's a decade old, but good. I did a live stream with Tara Grace from Burn the Stigma, where we first we announced that we were all going to watch. Anybody in the community wanted to watch the business of recovery. And then we did a live stream where we unpacked our thoughts on it and your thoughts on it. So that's
really, I'd love to watch that. I didn't know you guys did that.
I'll find that right now. That's under
I would love to see that.
Live videos. So business.
When I was talking with him as he finished up that film, and we thought for sure he was going to get on Showtime or like a big platform or a streamer or whatever. And even Claudia Christian, they were so mild mannered compared to me. I thought for sure. And when he didn't, I was like, this is not good. It's censorship.
I put the link for the business of recovery live stream. It was over 3 hours. That's really funny, like 3.5 hours with Burn the Stigma. So that's a big discussion. So I just put that link there. But you can also search that on my YouTube channel. And the Muppet named Mo says, I personally think the New York office, this would be the Alcoholics Anonymous office, I'm assuming, has blood on their hands from what I experienced and saw in the 13th Step documentary.
Yeah, I think so too. I think they're culpable. Absolutely. And that new story that just popped up that I think I tagged you in, where that guy was sexually assaulting a woman and there was a child in the back seat. And in the headline, it was really nice to see finally in AA in the headline. And everybody should go grab it before somebody takes it down. So you take a screenshot and do whatever you can and print out that story. Because I do think there is. And, Al-Anon was sued and they lost. All that stuff is hidden though, and we didn't have the money to hire lawyers to get it on, and if you can get it unsealed. So they got rid of Alatot. Can you imagine that? And Alateens, the sponsors and people involved, have to get a background check. I think AA, I think you could sue. I think people could today in today's world, and if you were told by your sponsor and the people in that group to stop taking your meds, and that kid committed suicide, the parents that was the lawsuit. That was one of the lawsuits I was trying to find when I made the film. And I went to the court's records in downtown Manhattan and I couldn't find it. There were lawsuits. There were some. So, yeah.
We have one last comment here I'll put up, which is Becky, who says, I
I
want
want my
my
money.
money back that I put in the tin. Ba-dum, bum, bum.
Me too. That's it. Me too, honey. You
I
know
want
what? One of
my
my
time
friends.
back. You know, I want I, I if
I want my
I
time.
love where I'm at now, and we got to wrap up in a minute. I love where I'm at now, meaning everything that I understand about the world, life, and myself and things because of I've was in a cult and then I've deprogrammed from a cult. I love the perspective that I'm in now and the way my brain works now. But I really wish I you know I would recommend not going. I would recommend learning about it by reading a book, not by actually spending 10 years of your life in a cult. And then I've been out for 6 years now. All the time I've spent on deprogramming, it's just like, geez, I think it's better not to get sucked into a cult and then deal with all the negative consequences of believing the ideology is real. And to me, AA is all about self diminution. And the more I think about it and the more I read about it, the more I realize that
Mm.
maybe it's actually meant to be more for a specific type of personality, and that personality might tend to be more masculine than feminine or male. And that somebody who received a lot of trauma and
Mm.
spent their life
Mhm.
diminishing themselves already,
Mhm.
that kind of a treatment or that kind of a program, not treatment, is actually more harmful than somebody who actually has an inflated sense of self. So if you already have a deflated sense of self, deflating yourself is for me, it wasn't what I needed. I needed to be more full of myself. I needed to be more clear on my boundaries, my needs, and know that I matter and that I count and that like I can take up space versus the opposite.
I did some. Wow, diminution. I've never heard that word. I love it. When I had a lot of regret because of my time being taken, me giving so much time to AA that I did have to do. I am a spiritual person, and there's periods where it kind of got slocky a little bit, but I am. And I learned this work where I could take back. So it really fucked with my head. And I cried a lot about the years I gave this time of me to it. And I was angry. I would get angry and sad about it. And then I mourned it. And then somebody showed me how to do this work that I did where I would go and take it back. And that really helped me. It was she taught it to deal with this guy who I got involved with at the was my marriage was ending, my first marriage, and I gave way too much there, and so I was furious about it. And she said, I'm gonna show you something you can do," and I did it, and it worked. It really helped me, and so I did this other thing with AA too, and I was like, I don't know. There's just other stuff that you can do that was helpful besides talking to people about it. But I really appreciate you having me on again, Kirsten. It's been
Yeah.
a blast. I love you. I do it again and all this stuff you're doing. And any way I can help, especially with some of the stats that you're doing, there's a couple of people that I think I should connect you with. And I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
And thanks for everybody who was here
It's
down
been
in
so
the.
much fun. And remember, if you're watching the replay, you're definitely part of the conversation too. Let us know what you think in the comments. There's a story you want to share, if there's a question you have, or just something you want to say, the conversation is, to me, it's most rich in the comments because there's what I think, there's what Monica thinks, and
Yeah.
then there's what all of you guys think too. And it's all of our minds together. I think that really helps awaken our critical thinking and knock us out of the group think and become more integrated and more ourselves, which is really the post-cult journey in a lot of ways. Blue Butterfly saying thank you.
Totally.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Blue
And
Butterfly. Yeah.
yeah, so
Thanks.
all right. And
All right,
also
buddy.
one last thing, if there's any specific topics that you would like to hear about or any specific ideas you have for content, definitely leave those in the comments as well. So I know how to what to consider to better serve you. And yeah, spark
Sounds good.
conversations that want to be had and heard. That's
Mm-hmm.
that's my motivation, is I want to spark conversations. You know what I mean? I have ideas and I want to hear what everybody else thinks about them. So much of leaving and so much of what I get in my DMs is people who have felt isolated and alone, and like there weren't conversations that were honest about what leaving is like, what leaving AA is like, what deprogramming is like, and thinking about it out loud. And that just being in a conversation or witnessing a conversation can be so healing and liberating. And
Mm-hmm.
so I just want all these conversations to exist. I love that, Monica, you've been leading this for what, like 15 years now, like a decade and a half, since
Yeah.
2011.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, there's been, we have a couple more things here. Ron saying, thanks, Kirsten, Monica. It's a great start to the day. Better than an AA meeting. So funny. Yeah. So I appreciate all of your work, Monica. It's always fun to vibe with you. You are welcome anytime. I'd love to do more live streams with you and just see what everybody wants to chat about and bring them all on. This has been such a pleasure and a delight.
Thank you.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody. Bye.